Let's see, there's the red button. Hello, everybody. I'm Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach. I'm the founder of the Dream Business Mastermind and Coaching Program, creator of Dream Business Academy, and obviously host of Dream Business Radio. Welcome to another fantastic live interview right here on Facebook. Today, I have the distinct pleasure and honor of interviewing a very good friend of mine, Dr. David Phelps. He's also member emeritus, one of only a couple of the Dream Business Mastermind. Did you even know that, David? Yeah, you do.
You mean there's some of us that they're still alive from that original group?
Yeah. I'm like, are these guys? They don't come to college. No, he is a member for life. I think, which is the official emeritus description. But anyway, I bestowed that high honor on you. Anyway.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. That's very kind.
I talk about you on the calls and things like that. So for the few people who might not know who you are, let me give your background for the two people who don't know who David Phelps. Anyway, these late afternoon ones, you get a little punchy when you're on the camera all day. Anyway, while still in dental school, David began investing in real estate by joint venturing with his father on their first rental property. That was back in 1980. And I know that's 43 years ago because we got married in 1980. So I always know that number. Anyway, 3 years later, David took his $25,000 capital gain share and leveraged it into 31 properties that produced $15,000 a month in net cash flow. Wow. When life was good, and David's doing his dental practice and that, his daughter Jenna was diagnosed with leukemia and began a tumultuous battle for life. Obviously, shook the family to its core. Ultimately, she received a liver transplant, and David made the crucial decision to leave his practice to spend every moment with his daughter, which I think most people would do. But David's plan B, which was a portfolio of cash flow producing real estate assets, gave him the freedom to focus 100% on what mattered most, which is spending time with Jenna. And today, David is a nationally recognized speaker, literally speaks all over the world on creating freedom, building real businesses, investing in real estate. David helps other logical, rational professionals strategically create freedom for themselves. You're noticing the word freedom a lot, and there's a big reason for that. Under David's leadership, the Freedom Founders community grows exponentially every year, providing the pathway to freedom for many professional practice owners. I've known David, I tried to figure this out, at least 12 years. I always shortchange a little bit, but I'm going to say 12 years. And as I see, he was one of the early members in the Dream Business Mastermind. And I was around when he was putting this whole Freedom Founders together. It's an incredible group of people. I know many of them. I know that they just hold David very high. He's an incredible visionary, a big thinker. And the group which he started has grown into, I'm going to call it an empire because it's my show. David, you run an empire with Freedom Founders. Now, it just so happens that I interviewed David about, I'm going to say 6 months ago. I think it was March. On his last book, which was What's Your Next? And by the way, if you're one of the approximately, I'm going to say 30,000 people reading one of my 6 books for free, either Kindle, iTunes, or Nook book, you have David to thank for that, because there was a chapter in David's book called Investing in Your Legacy. And I think, legacy. I got a little white here. I should start thinking about my legacy. And that's eventually long story short, I decided to give away all my books. That was the best way I could help more people and actually not work more than 3 days a week. So we're going to be talking today about his new book, which is co-written by my greatest mentor, the man who was, I think, literally responsible for this crazy lifestyle I am very blessed to live, Mr. Dan Kennedy. So, all right, David, that's enough talking for me. You got to carry the rest of the show.
Well, that's a great start, Jim. I mean, you do very, very well. Open it up, but yeah, we were talking before we jumped on live here that getting Dan to do a project, particularly, it was really about a year after he survived near-death experience. So that was 2019. He was on his deathbed in hospice, miraculously. I mean, it was a slow climb back, right? So slow climb back in January the following year. He was coming back, but he was still weak and just taking day at a time, which is what you would do when you're that close to the end of your life. And so then it was another 6 months. I think it was August of 2020. So last year, the country, the world is 3, 4, 5 months, probably 5 months deep into COVID and all of the volatility and tumultuous activities that everybody had to go through to some level. And I was thinking, because you're right. I am about freedom, and my own story about how to create multiple streams of income, which I think is very important. Not to be just focused on one thing, which is what Dan always taught us is like if you just focus on one thing or one business iteration or one client base, I mean you're very vulnerable. Well, a lot of people found out with COVID that one income source that had been up till then pretty good, I guess, right, was vulnerable because out of the blue comes a black swan and throws everything up in the air. And so I was thinking in August, we had helped a lot of our clients, which are, primarily professional practice owners, navigating all of that. And there was a lot to navigate, of course, for every business owner, anybody, whether you were employee, employer. And I was just thinking about, things were changing, and I could see the changes, not just because of COVID and, certainly the real consequences of that, which is a lot of sick people, a lot of people, unfortunately, tragically have died, still happening today. But also just the shift in mindset that I think a lot of people are starting to have kind of a wake up call of their own in terms of what's this all about? I work hard and then all of a sudden it can be like stripped away from me. But then also the good side was, hey, I got to spend some time doing things I never got to spend time doing, like maybe like re-engaging with friends or family during the shutdown time. And so that's where the book came from in my thinking. And I wanted to reach out to Dan because, as you said, we can all probably point to a few people that have been significant in our lives, Jim, right? And that could be a family member, that could be a parent for sure, a teacher, a mentor, a coach in school. I mean, somebody who during that time of your life just really sewed into you, and you think back and go, wow, that was powerful. And I thought, Dan was one of the few that were still living that have really sewed into my life. I thought maybe I could get Dan to like do something together because, as we both know, Dan is all about autonomy. I mean, personal sovereignty. Dan's the torchbearer for that, has been his whole life.
Right.
He would never be dependent on anybody, any third party, any government agency. I mean, Dan just carried the torch like, if it's going to be, it's up to me. And so I thought, who better to get into a book about freedom? So when I asked Dan, I wasn't sure because, again, he was being very discerning about what he took on. He's still climbing back, right? But you know what? I think the title caught his eye. I knew it did. I thought I had to hang the bait, right? I had to hang the right bait. Dan always talked about that. I said, I'll be working back on him, see if this thing works.
Yeah.
And so he took it, and so just for people to know is we co-outline the book, but our chapters are separate. They're independent, and we kind of interlace them together, right? So you hear my voice from my experiences, and then Dan intertwines certainly a lot of things that I've taken from Dan, and we just kind of like lace them together. And to me, I'm biased, but I think it makes for a good read. You can, I know, Jim, you've had a chance to skim through it, but to me, again, I'm biased, but I think it makes for a very principled book for people who want to take control of their life in spite of all the external elements that we all have to face today and going forward.
That's right. I mean, you can sit there and bemoan the circumstances. I've got clients, some that that were in the event planning business. They do corporate things, parties. One of my clients was a hypnotherapist, and today I'm helping a photographer. All of that business shut down.
Yeah.
Like, can't go into people's homes and take photographs, things like that. So you just got to find a different way to get going. I think my first question I want to ask you, kind of to set the table for our discussion, David, is why is it important to own your own freedom? And exactly what do you mean by own your own freedom?
This country was founded on principles of freedom. And yet today, more and more, we're seeing, and this is not just happening today, this has been happening for decades. So I'm not going to point a political finger at anybody, any side. This is just the trend. But government, all-powerful government, is building up more of a Leviathan bureaucracy that really the government as a whole wants to have more control over the citizens' lives. That's just, unfortunately, the trend. But do we have to succumb to that? Do we have to just roll over and take it? And I say, no, we don't. In fact, I'm very optimistic that this country, America, what the principles we were founded upon, believe that there's still a strong grassroots that will never go away of the fundamental elements of freedom, even though, unfortunately, a lot of people have bought in to the construct that the government is going to take care of me, and the government, every time there's a crisis, will step in.
Shockingly too many.
Yeah, shockingly too many. So my point is, we have to own our personal freedom first. It sounds selfish, right? But you think about when you're on a plane and the flight attendants say, in the event of a decompression of the cabin, the mask will drop, and your instructions are to put yours on first.
Right.
Well, why would I want to do that? I got people around me I care about, even strangers. Nope. But if you don't put yours on first, you're not going to be able to help those other people. So it starts with us, those of us who feel blessed, but also the fact that we have to not only build and create freedom, but we have to be able to maintain and preserve that in amidst all the all that's going on around us. And so if we can do that, even in a trend towards socialism and whatever you want to call it today, we can
Right.
own that. And I think that's how this country could turn things back around when that day comes.
Yeah, and I like that analogy about the the oxygen thing coming down, because you do have to take care of yourself, or otherwise you won't be able to take care of other people. I know my story. When I got involved in some different charity work, I heard this expression, like, the best way to help the poor is not be one of
Yeah.
them. And so don't feel bad about creating success for yourself. It allows you to do better. So, anyway, I think we're on the same page about that. Chapter 2, and I did more than skim it, David. I took about an hour this morning, which seems like not a lot, but it is a lot, actually. So chapter 2, I'm gonna shock you in how much I actually read your book for the interview. Chapter 2 is called Your Freedom Number. And you describe economic freedom as like one of 5 freedoms, and along with time, relationships, health, purpose, and legacy. So what is your freedom number? I'm guessing, is that the number that allows you to walk away, not care? Maybe there's something
Yeah,
more
yeah, no,
eloquent than
you're
that.
right. You're right. Yeah, that's the number where you have typically other assets or other investments, let's just call them that are producing enough cash flow from those assets, from your ownership or control of those assets, producing enough cash flow that you don't have to get up and go work for every day. So yes, to your point, that number that replaces your active income or your need for active income. I'm not saying that when you get to that number that you just quit doing anything. I mean, that's
Right.
not the case at all, but it gives you the freedom to be more discerning about how and where you spend your time, with whom, and what you're doing. It's actually exactly what you and Stephanie are doing. I mean, you are still extremely vibrant in the marketplace. You are helping so many other business owners, as you've done for years and years, but you're doing it on your terms.
Right.
You have 3 days a week that you say, these are the days I will focus on helping the people I help. The other days, I'm going to spend time the way I want to spend my time. And by the way, we're not like anchored down where we have to be in some city state. As Dan Kennedy says, there's big signs on the freeways that say, you can move to different cities. So, well, people say, well, I can't do that. Jim Palmer says, oh, yes, I can. By the way,
I like your anchored analogy. That fit pretty well.
Well, I try to be relevant with my hosts. I do my homework too, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the freedom number, I have the pyramid of the 5 freedoms, and you name them off. So I put financial or economic freedom at the base because, let's face it, Jim, that's where everybody has to go first. It's like Maslow's hierarchy. You want to go from just basic physical need requirement to some level of stability. Until you have your hunger and your food and water and your shelter taken care of, you're not thinking too much about legacy, right? I mean, it's just
Right.
But once you know that you're even on the path with measured specificity towards economic freedom, you don't have to be there. That can take some time. Okay, it's not an overnight thing, but when you have specific metrics that you can measure, say I am on track, then the other freedoms can start to expand. And that's what I want people to get. It's like, you don't wait. In fact, this progression of freedoms is not linear. You do this one and then you do this one. No, you should be working on all of them simultaneously, but maybe more focus early on towards economic, plugging a little bit of purpose and legacy as you go along, because you don't wait until the end to like, oh, what's my legacy? What breadcrumbs am I going to leave for the people? No, you should be doing that always along the pathway, but maybe with different proportionality to those different 5 freedoms.
Yeah, and I think what's important about your freedom number, it forces you to get real clarity on what it is you want your life to look like. What's it going to take to live that lifestyle? When you get to be I'll say my age, because
oh, go ahead, Jim. It's us together, right? Okay.
Right, it's us together. People are like, well, when are you going to retire? Well, I can't sit still for the life of me. So, but there is a number. When I hit that, I'll keep working, but it won't be like to approach the freedom number. Right. I'll keep working because I enjoy it. I want to keep the mind active. I like helping people. I like giving and serving. So all those things keep taking place, but I do have clarity on what I'd like to get to. So then I work almost for fun, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, that makes sense. I think that's probably what you're talking about with the freedom number, right?
Yeah, well, I think the work that you have the opportunity to do at that point, again, how you want to do it, where, when, with whom, it's going to give you more energy. And when you have more energy, then you put more into it. And again, not for the money, but actually because you actually just enjoy being relevant and having some kind of impact to some number of people. And it can be a small number. It doesn't, the whole thing is this doesn't have to be a big thing, right? I mean, you can be impactful because the ripple effect of that, goes on and on and on. When you've helped one person make a change in their life, I mean, that just, and then that person then goes on and pays that forward. It's just like that ripple effect. So don't think of legacy as like if I can't have a stadium named after me, then I haven't done anything. Of course, that's bogus, right? I mean, you don't need that to be relevant or significant to other people.
In the book, Dan was writing about demystifying money. My story, I know you've heard it. You came to a number of my events. I used to have a horrible, relationship with money. I thought it was it was such a barometer of who you are, things like that. And of course I had debt early on, but Dan talks about the business of money.
Right.
Describe a little bit of that, if you would.
Yeah, well, this is something that Dan has taught for a long time, and I really believe he's right. Is that money moves, and people talk about I need to go earn money, and yes, we do. We need to trade time for dollars for some period of time in our lives until we're building that economic freedom. So we kind of go and chase money, right? But money moves, and so the business of your money really is taking responsibility for your ability to orchestrate how money's going to work for you rather than abdicate it. An abdication is a far step from delegation. I have no problem with delegating certain aspects of business or finances, but you need to be the orchestrator of that. If you delegate or abdicate it, here, let me just give my money to a money manager because the world says finances and retirement planning, it's just too complicated. And of course, Jim, we know they make it complicated on purpose. So people will take that. You're right. I'm a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, and that's what I focus my time on. That's what I'm good at. This money thing, it's way too confusing. And so just give it to somebody who's going to supposedly take care of it for you. There's nobody who's going to look after you and your assets and your future like you can. Now, again, it doesn't mean you need to know everything and have expertise in all areas. You can't. So you need to assemble a team, people that will give you insight. But you yourself, you can learn enough about basic financial acumen to know, who's on your team and what the right choices are. Quick aside, and we hear this all the time especially from athletes, professional athletes who that make a lot of money, right? And of course, they're focused on what they do, right? They're talented athletes. They've probably never had to really work hard in school at all because they were always catered to, and so they got through based on their talent. Well, that talent is not going to last their lifetime. What you find is a lot of those athletes who made a lot of money in the early days of their career, and then of course they were their lifespan was relatively short. And then what happened to all the money? Well, they wasted away or abdicated it to people who were looking out for themselves, and they end up with nothing. See, unfortunately, they didn't take enough responsibility for understanding the business of their money as they did the business of being a great athlete. That's just one example.
Yeah. The other thing I was looking, I was curious, by the way, I was always skimming for the David and Dan chapters. No offense to yourself, but I love Dan. I mean, nobody speaks with clarity like Dan. He boils it down to the no BS, but he was talking about groupthink. Well, both of you were. So what is groupthink? And how does it control your life in a bad way or a good way?
Yeah. Well, I think usually in a bad way, because groupthink is really following majority thinking or majority trends, or what society defines as success, or what society would say about, you need to go get an education, and you need to get college degrees, and maybe you need to get an MBA. Maybe, you need, and that's following the majority. The reason why people do it, and it's a human characteristic, Jim. I mean, we all have a tendency, we want to be safe. Well, if I'm with the crowd, whatever that crowd is doing or thinking or wherever they're going, well, I kind of want to be with them because it's safe and, I feel hip. And it's very lonely, as you expressed many times, to be that entrepreneur, the one who goes against the grain, the one who says, you know what, I'm going to do it my way. I don't want to do it like everybody else says. I'm going to do it my way. That's lonely. And so, so we tend to follow, or most people follow the majority. And right along back to money again, and economic freedom is people tend to say, well, you do the standard things. You accumulate, you save money, and you put it on Wall Street. Maybe you put it in like 401ks, which are, that became the avant-garde after the pension plans kind of died in the late 70s. So now it became 401ks, and everybody does the same thing. It's like, but how does that really end up? And we're gonna find out that really no generation has ever successfully retired on a 401k. That's coming to play right now with our generation, who many of them are quote retiring on 401ks. It's not going to end well, unfortunately. So that's what Dan and I would say about groupthink. You're probably better off if you're not sure what to do. Don't follow the majority. There's a reason why they're the majority. The reason why they're called the majority, because the majority is usually average, and average is not really the life that we're looking for.
I was just about to say that, because you and I have been to so many Dan Kennedy events, but he'd say if you look at the room here, there's like 1,000 people here. There's 800 or 900 people who all do about the same thing, and you call that the average. So if you're going to do with the average, you're going to get average. How could you expect to get average results if you follow the group? So another great expression I read in your book is a call to arms. And it almost struck me a little bit, David. I shared this with you before we went live. I don't know if 6 months, 9 months, I don't know when you wrote the book, but the country's been, in my opinion, slipping into a different way. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole here, but the book today, I think, is even more powerful than when it came out. And so this call to arms, I think, is a great expression. So you can address that. But part B of this two-parter, is you said something which I completely agree with. Especially as a coach, I see this at different levels. What got you here won't get you to where you want to go. Talk about those two things.
All right. So call to arms, that is the introduction, which I wrote. Now we started writing the book, well, really in the fall of 2020. So what's that? Call it 14, 15 months.
Yes, that's a lot longer than I thought.
Started writing it then. Of course, the introduction had not been written then. So I'm trying to remember when I wrote the introduction. Probably wrote the introduction, maybe I'm thinking earlier this year in 2021. Okay. The book, to your point, is not political, except for a call to arms.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I feel sometimes conflicted. I wanted a book, Jim, that would resonate with a wide audience. Now, typically we learn to write, for maybe a tighter audience or for our specific niche prospect or client. And I think there's reasons to do that for sure. But this book was on my heart for a bigger reason. And so I didn't want to just slant a bunch of political stuff. And there's plenty of books on politics. If you want to go get those books, there's left, right, and everything in between.
Right.
I didn't want another one of those. But I did want to give people a little bit of feeling of where I come from and why I feel like that now. And of course, our lifespan is only a small segment in time when we go through even the history of this country, which is we're at 250 some years. Our lifespan, Jim, is in the early 60s. So that's a quarter of this country. So I'm saying, in my perspective, we're at a juncture, at least I feel like, where this country is at a tipping point. And as I said earlier, I'm very optimistic, but it means that for those who believe in personal freedom, which is what this country was built on, it's why our founding fathers, put everything on the line, to divest away from the tyranny of the King of England.
Right.
They put everything on the line for it. It was that important. I mean, they put their lives on the line, their families on the line, everything on the line. They had reason. We are the benefactors of that, and we tend to take that for granted. And I think we are generally soft as a nation, as people, thinking, oh, well, it's okay. It'll all just revert back. And it's like, I'm sensing, nope, this is a deeper current. And we need to wake up. Now, each person gets to decide how you want to do that. I'm not saying I'm not a get out on the street and I don't picket and I don't protest that way. As long as you do it peacefully, I'm not against it. I'm just saying each one of us, I think, has a responsibility, again, to ourselves first, put the oxygen mask on, but then to the people we care about, whatever circle that is. It could be nationally, could be your community, could be your family. I don't care. You pick what's important to you. But a call to arms means it's time to take a stand. however you want to do it. You choose. I'm not telling people how to do it, but you choose. You need to get some conviction about you. And who do you want to ingrain that in? Who around you is important enough that you want to help them also see what you believe to be true?
Yeah. And again, get clarity on what's important to you, because things are being taken away. Freedom is being taken away. Anyway, you wrote, David, also, wealth is what you own, not what you do. Pretty powerful statement.
And that's not what society tells us. Society says, go out and get the degree, the credentials, where society will anoint you as being worthy of a certain income because you've done the work. And there's truth to that from an active income standpoint. There's some truth to that. It doesn't always play out exactly right. There's a lot of vulnerabilities we found out this last year in COVID with those people who thought they had a strong income stream, and all of a sudden that's upside down. But what I found, and it's part of what you read at the intro, is owning an asset. And now, what's an asset? Well, I'm talking about tangible assets. I'm talking about owning a real business, Jim. Something that you're a super fan and a super authority on. A business where it's not fully dependent upon you. See, a business where you go to work and you have to be in the business every day, operationally producing, fulfilling. That's a starting point, but that's not a real asset. That's really creating a job. I'm talking about a business, or in this case, real estate, which I love, is an asset that once you build it, you acquire it, and then somebody, it doesn't have to be you, manages it. Now you have income that will be produced whether you're going to work or not. And again, to have multiple interests in different businesses or real estate or some combination thereof is what will provide for the reduces the susceptibility to what a lot of people have seen. So what you own becomes more important than what you do. But there's a transference of that. All of us start out with trading time for dollars, so it's what we do at first. We build up security for the bills, and then we start to have some savings, and we think about investments, which is all good. But what are those investments? So the ownership of assets in the long run becomes way more powerful and sustainable than what we do, because eventually we either society and the world changes so fast that we can't keep up. So we can't keep up our trading time for dollars, or we have to keep iterating and moving, or something happens to our health. Maybe, I mean, we can't do what we do because something happened to us. That happens to a lot of people who depend upon brains and hands to do things, and they get in an accident, or some disease process creates nervous tremors. I mean, I know lots of people in my field of dentistry who have had to stop producing dentistry because physically something gave out, right? What wasn't part of the plan, but it happens.
So we're just about out of time, but I want to go 5 minutes longer because I want to bring this full circle to the question I just asked you. So David, when you're talking, or when you look at like the financial channels, it doesn't matter which one you turn on, they never mention real estate. It's always the Dow, it's NASDAQ, S&P 500. It's always that. But real estate is such a big chunk of the wealth that you own. How come they never talk about that?
Because they can't tell people how to scale it. Yeah. See, Wall Street's easy to scale. Wall Street, you can invest on Wall Street with a click of a mouse. It's easy. Much harder to do that with real estate. Real estate's very inefficient. It's very dislocated in most forms. So it's an opportunity for those who want to learn or gain access to it. But yeah, people that sell financial information or do financial advisement. Again, I'm not demeaning anybody who has good intentions, but they have one channel of service, and that is what they sell on Wall Street financial products. And so they're not going to talk about real estate because, well, there's no money for them to make in real estate, even though, even though intellectually, most of those people do know that solid amount of wealth that's carried forward historically, generation by generation, is through real estate. But yeah, there's no money to be made from any of those platforms, so they don't talk about it.
It's always the money, always the dollar. So very interesting. My final question is, had you not partnered with your dad in 1980, you think you'd still be doing this? Would you have discovered real estate? Was it a passion of yours even before your dad helped you? Or?
It was becoming a passion because I was reading books. Books, Jim, like you write so many books. I found books, from people who fed into me at that age where I was trying to figure out. Trying to figure out this thing of the business of money. I didn't call it that, but I was trying to figure it out. Well, I was always trying to figure out money when I was a kid, Jim. I was always trying to figure out how do you make money because I wanted independence at an early age. I was always figuring out how could I sell stuff to make money because my parents didn't give it. So yeah, it became a focus that I want to learn how to be a better investor. And I thought, why the heck do I need to wait? Like the chapter that Dan wrote in the book about the power of before you're ready. Well, I wasn't out of school yet, but I thought, how can I start investing now? I have no money. I got no credit. I know somebody who does. So maybe likes me. I don't know. Maybe will trust me.
Yeah, right.
That's how it works. So I got my first investment going while I was still in school. When I graduated and we sold the property, thanks to my excellent management technique, we split about $50,000 in capital gain profit, which is how I leveraged into more properties. So yes, I think that there's no telling where I would be if that hadn't happened. I don't know. I think I still would have figured out a way to get in because it was on my mind, but it would have been a different way. Maybe it would have been later, right?
It's so interesting that your dad. I mean, if I was your dad, I'd say you finished school first.
That's what you would think, right? But
yeah,
I don't know. I'd read enough books about real estate that inherently, when I told him why I thought it was better to own the asset than rent, especially if you're going to be in one place for 4 years, that's like throwing money away. Well, Dad, we could be building equity, Dad, wealth, Dad. So I think that was enough of a selling point, and he knew I would put hard effort into it. He knew I wasn't going to, drop the ball on the management, which is what he didn't want to deal with.
Wow, what a fun interview, David. Thank you so much. How can people learn more about you and Freedom Founders, that awesome group that you founded and still are the head of today? And also, what's the best place to get your book, Own Your Freedom?
Well, if you want to get some bonuses, you can go to ownyourfreedombook.com. Of course, it's available on Amazon. And just so people know, you can get the hard copy, you can get Kindle. And also, Dan and I both read our chapters for the Audible version. So if you want to be lulled to sleep by our beautiful voices, you can always
Was it grumpy, Dan, or how was his voice?
It was pretty good. Yeah, he went to a studio.
Okay.
And this is when he was his energy had been coming back a lot, so I think it's pretty good. Let's see, Freedom Founders. The website's freedomfounders.com. People can learn more about what we do there at that website.
And you don't have to be a dentist to be part of that community.
You do not. We don't do anything clinical, so you don't have to know anything about teeth except maybe the ones you brush and floss. If you know that much, you're good. You're good.
Good deal, David. Thank you so much. I'm grateful that I'm grateful you came on and waited for me to park somewhere where I had decent Wi-Fi, so I wasn't getting cut off. Always a pleasure interviewing you, sir.
Oh, Jim, thanks. It's great to catch up with you. All the best for this Christmas. You and Stephanie spending it with your parents. I think that's the best of the best. I'm glad you're doing that. That's really good.
Yeah, it's a good move. We always happen to be at the right place, even though we move around. It's just so interesting how we happen to be where we need to be at the right time. It's kind of interesting how that works out. Anyway, folks, that wraps up take two. That wraps up this very special live episode of Dream Business Radio with my special guest, Dr. David Phelps. You can connect with me at getjimpalmer.com. That's kind of my home base. If you want to apply to be part of the awesome Dream Business Mastermind, go to Dream Biz Coaching, dreambizcoaching.com. Remember, as I alluded to earlier, you can get all 6 of my books for free in digital format, either at Kindle, on Amazon, at Nook Books at bnn.com, or you can get them in the Apple iBook store. But that's it until this time next week or the next time we get together. I am Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach. You take good care. Thank you, David.
Thanks, Jim.